Hello, this is Pat Lynch, and you are listening and watching As the World Turns or Burns, the podcast from Lyon College, deep in the heart of the Maybe Simpson Library. Joining me, as always, is
Kieran O'Keefe,
Brendan Connell,
and producer Jayson.
And maybe, Jayson, you should say Pavlov award-winning
Yep.
producer Jayson.
Also English Book Award, but nobody cares about.
Oh
that.
yeah, throw that in there. Yeah, okay. So yeah, but that's
2 awards that get no money, by the way.
But all kinds of
Really?
recognition.
There's no money for the book awards?
Okay, there was no check attached to either one. And I saw people with checks, but Cholga said, supposedly the English Book Award, I'll get a check, but it's not there. I don't know.
It'll be in crypto, probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna get like 0.00014 Bitcoin.
But it's money's money, sorta. But today, as far as things we're going to talk about, it's just this insane grab bag, of things. And so are we prepared? Do we have all our facts in the way? Of course not. But does that ever get in our way of having a gab fest?
Never has.
Never has and never will. First thing, talk both you guys. Should Samuel L. Jackson become the new spokesperson for the Pentagon? Now that Pete Hegseth has kind of begun quoting him. What do you think?
Well, I think Quentin Tarantino should be probably a speechwriter at the very least.
Yeah. They could. Yeah. How many F-bombs could he put in one?
Probably
one press
less
briefing?
than what's said right now in the current administration, I'm sure. But for the record, so what we're referring to is there was a quote from Pulp Fiction that was said by the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War. Pete Hegseth, and I will go on record and say I think this is the best thing that's happened so far with the war in Iran. This is the best move that's been made by the administration, to quote a Samuel L. Jackson line from the great movie Pulp Fiction, which is in my top 3, actually. Yep. I like that movie.
Yeah. Anything, Kieran?
I've never seen Pulp Fiction, so I can't say
Whoa.
much.
Really? Wow. You have to have some movie nights.
Dude.
It's a lot of things I haven't seen or listened to.
Oh man,
I don't pay any attention to pop culture at all. I'm totally oblivious.
You only watch documentaries?
Civil War films.
I mean, I watch some movies, but I don't remember who's in it or anything. I don't know. I'm a little bit better with movies than I am with music. Music, I don't know anything. Movies, I don't know much, but I guess more than zero.
Okay, so I'm making a mental kind of list. Okay, you must find a way to so you can see Pulp
Have you seen
Fiction.
The Patriot?
I have seen The Patriot.
Of course she has.
Yeah, it's very historically accurate.
Yeah, one of the most historically accurate films of all time.
There was, I've given this quote in my class before, but there's a famous American Revolution historian who taught at, he might still teach at Brandeis. But when it came out, he was interviewed, I think, by the New York Times, or he wrote for the New York Times, and he said that The Patriot is to history as Godzilla is to biology.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely perfect. But best thing that came out of Iran, but what, Brendan, you and I were talking this. Is this now Trump's Vietnam, like Biden's Afghanistan? I mean, how are they going to get out of this? It just seems that they're in so deep. There's no easy way to get out, despite he'll claim victory. But I mean, the facts will speak otherwise.
Yeah, it's not on the level of a Vietnam, not even close, but it is his foreign policy failure.
Yeah.
And unequivocally, because part of the controversy of Iran is it was unprovoked.
Right.
I think the legal case for conducting these strikes in the first place is very, very weak, right? Yeah. I mean, typically the way international law works is you're only going to use force if it's the UN Security Council that acts or if it's some sort of self-defense, and this doesn't check either of those boxes. So this was done, I would say, clearly illegally by international law standards, and done willingly by the Trump administration. So you can't really deny that this was just something we ended up in. This was a choice that was made, and now we can't get out.
Yeah.
And I think, what's being said by the administration changes seemingly by the hour, which makes it seem to me that I don't know if there is a clear plan and if we know quite what we're doing, because one day or even 1 hour of the day, Trump is saying that the war is almost over. I think this has happened a couple times now, saying that the end of the war is imminent. And then a couple hours later, he'll say something like, we're going to destroy the entire country.
Yeah.
So it's like, if it doesn't make sense, it might not be that we don't understand it. It might be that the people making the policy don't quite understand what they're exactly doing. So I do think that Trump has painted himself into a corner here, because any immediate way out right now is going to require concessions by the U.S. Like the best case scenario is you get something like the deal we had prior to Trump, the
JCPOA,
the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And by Trump's own words, that was a failure of a deal.
What a bunch of losers. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't make that deal then. You've got to make a deal that's better than that. So even if you think that's a good deal, politically, it's not going to be a good deal for Trump because he came out and said he doesn't like it. So, I just think they underestimated what was going to happen after the initial strikes. I think the dream scenario was there was going to be a removal of the Ayatollah, the leader, and then there would be either a crisis within the regime itself that would maybe lead to I don't know, some sort of coup or some sort of overhaul that would lead to a U.S.-friendly government, or perhaps another Iranian revolution, and none of that has happened yet. So,
and supposedly Netanyahu, kind of convinced Trump that was the distinct possibility in taking this action. And I guess on top of that, it was their assessment, this part was correct, that Iran was at a very weak point. Israel had already done some of those the raids earlier, and so they were at kind of a low point, and so this is the perfect time to strike. And I guess how you get hubris and by just all of a sudden having this inflated sense of like what you can do. And so Venezuela was just a recent memory, and here we come in, our excellent military operation, extract the leader, got a friendly leader in there. Why now? Let's just rinse and repeat in another country, and oh darn, it didn't work out at all. Yeah, I don't know, Kieran.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's not anywhere close to Vietnam or Iraq, anything like that. I mean, Vietnam was like a decade long, 58,000 Americans died. So I think that's far more catastrophic than this. I'm not even sure if it's quite to the level of Afghanistan, because Afghanistan looked so bad on TV with us pulling out, and the Afghans who had supported us desperately trying to get on the planes, and the Taliban taking over even before we evacuated. What we set up there, we spent 20 years setting up, collapsed in the matter of really a few weeks. As the Afghan forces just defected, more or less deserted. So I don't know if it's to that extent, but it certainly hasn't helped Trump's presidency. It's probably the weakest he's been at maybe any point in his 2 terms. I mean, maybe even weaker than he was after January 6th, the tail end of his first term. So I don't know where things are going to go from here. He's going to try to declare it a victory no matter what. He's already kind of done that. I don't even really know what's going on, because it does seem like everything's changing minute by minute. 1 minute I'm reading that Trump's extended the ceasefire, and then there's been a clash in the Gulf, and then Trump's truthing whatever, threatening the Iranians, and then where things are good again supposedly. So I don't know what's going on, and whenever this comes out, it'll probably be outdated because things will have changed 10 times by then. But it certainly has hurt him domestically. I think it's hurt him on the international stage as well. I mean, the country maybe happiest with what's going on is maybe Russia, because Russia gets to becomes a greater provider of energy now that the Gulf of
you drove oil prices up, and then they got sanctions relief as far as being able to sell in the open market to try and bring oil prices down, and so that all equals a financial windfall.
Yeah, for Russia, it's, I think, a net positive for sure, and it makes the U.S. look weaker on the international stage because here's a middle-rate power that we're having to negotiate with over a body of water that was previously open to everybody just a couple months ago. So I think, like Brendan said, something along the Obama agreement is probably the best case scenario at this point. If it ends up being very similar to that agreement, Trump will try to say it's different somehow. He won't admit ever that it's something similar to what Obama did. And, might contain some of the provisions that he, relentlessly attacked the original agreement for. So we'll see what happens. It's hard to even say that much because everything's in so much flux right now that we just need to see how events play out.
As far as everything around Trump and his approval and kind of where he's standing, as of today, Tucker Carlson, one of the big conservative voices, has kind of decidedly said that he was misled. That he realizes that Trump is just wrong on some real fundamental issues. I think primarily this whole foreign intervention, and so MAGA, for what it's worth, was a very cohesive group that basically that MAGA was basically just whatever Trump wanted his agenda to be, and then everybody would kind of in uniform support it. And now it was like Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the maybe less influential MAGA people were dropping off, but this I think leads into something that could be much bigger in terms of Carlson has a very big microphone, and where this goes, anyone knows.
It's opened up fissures in the movement. I still wouldn't exaggerate it too much. If you look at Trump's approval rating, it was fallen from like 42 to 38%. So all of this has hurt him by 4 points, which in the standards of the Trump era is a lot.
Yeah.
By any other era, it's not. So I think he's still pretty popular with the Republican base. I've seen polling that he's still polling like over 80% with Republicans. But it doesn't take a lot of Republicans to defect for one reason or another to swing an election. So maybe Tucker Carlson breaking will encourage some Republicans to either stay home in the midterms or they vote for a third party or they write a candidate in, whatever. And that could be a windfall for the Democrats at the end of the day, possibly. So even small margins, which it seems to be so far, could be enough to net the Democrats a few extra seats in the House and maybe pick up a Senate seat they otherwise wouldn't have.
Brendan?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, like, what does public opinion specifically look like in swing states and what are going to be the competitive districts in the upcoming midterms? I don't know the answer to that, but what looks like maybe like small movements at the national scale might actually have big ramifications if it's swinging those swing areas or if it's swinging those voters that are kind of in the middle. But anyway, I also just think that it's only going to get worse, meaning the public approval for Trump is only going to get worse from here. It's not like it's going to get better, I don't think. Again, unless there's magically a solution and Trump comes out on top, but I just don't see it. It just doesn't seem like Iran has any reason to offer the concessions of what's being asked by the U.S. and Israel right now. So I think, especially if gas prices stay up and they keep going up further, this will end up having effects even within Trump's base. And Trump, there is this dynamic nowadays with polarization where it almost doesn't matter what he does. You either love him or you hate him. Right. But there's even limits to that. Like at a point, if you convince me that this glass of water is a glass of wine, I'm just not going to believe you. That's kind of what Iran is becoming, is you cannot spin this in any way. Like it's objectively not going well. Whereas at least with Venezuela and whatnot, we've talked about it before. Yeah. I will entertain the debate on if it was a good decision to overturn or take out Maduro. I personally don't think it was, but maybe I'm wrong. Like I do think it's like a debatable thing and you could debate it. But with what's going on in Iran right now, it's just hard for me or eventually I think it's going to be hard for even Trump's base to kind of see like, why are we even here? If this is what's happening and gas prices are going up and nothing's good coming of it, then why are we here?
Well, and where just being in the war itself is kind of one fracture with the base. I think another one that is just starting to play out, and it's kind of tied to it. If you're stuck and you can't resolve Iran, is the whole affordability message is going to get lost. Because it's prices are not going to be going down. Gas is very visible, but you have all these things that are any kind of petrochemical component to it, fertilizer prices. All of these things will start to ripple through the economy and start bringing bringing prices. They at best they won't get worse, but the inflation still will remain high enough for the Fed not to get too crazy on interest rates. But chances are it's going to go up, and it's going to go up at the absolute worst time, because we're 6 months from November, and so that's not a lot of time for an adjustment. And his one of no forever wars, affordability were kind of two. I'm in, probably one of the things he was rated on the highest was managing the economy, and I think he's going to lose that narrative with everything that's going on.
If you look at the polling by issue, if you look at Nate Silver's page, he has Trump's polling on every single issue. The one he has fallen the most on, and the one he has the lowest approval rating for now, is his handling of inflation.
Yeah,
that one has just kind of collapsed since he took office. Immigration, he's still it's gone down, but he's still actually doing reasonably well in immigration. It's actually gone up a little bit since the stuff in Minnesota has kind of got a little bit further into the rearview mirror. But the inflation, he's really struggling on that issue, much like Biden did. I do wonder with gas prices, though. Isn't gas going down right now? The last few days, hasn't it dropped a little bit, or am I making that up?
It probably has.
Yeah, I think it's dropped a little bit. So I don't know what's going to happen with the gas prices. If it stays above $4 a gallon, that's going to really hurt Trump and the Republicans in the midterms. I think if it goes down, though, I don't know. Part of me thinks Americans are going to have the memories of like a squirrel on that. If it's down to like $3.40 again, come November, maybe it won't hurt Trump as badly as we might think right now. So much can change. I know 6 months is not that far away, but it's far enough that there can be pretty wild swings in areas.
There'll be politicians in the midterms reminding everybody kind of what it was like 9 months ago and what it is today. Because that's the thing that really killed Biden. Because I was just thinking, I was in Kroger the other day, and I just routinely buy cereal. Like, you have cereal in the morning for breakfast, and I'm looking at, and the box of cereal is like $6.32. And in my head, I keep thinking cereal. I thought cereal was normally $3-4, and it was pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, and it's like what happened? And then it's like, thanks, Joe Biden, but no, but all this happened, and that same kind of thing, could come back to haunt Trump and all the as far as his whole economic agenda.
That's what you get for shopping at Kroger.
Well, it's not much better at Walmart, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, there's a misconception too that inflation's about the level of prices. It's really a rate of change. So I feel like there's a lot of uninformed Americans that don't understand that prices are never going to go down ever again. They're only going to continue to go up because that's just how economies work.
Yep.
You're not going to get deflation.
You hope not.
That'd be really bad.
Yeah, right, because then you're in a recession. But it almost seems like that's what people expected under Biden is like, wait a minute, when is cereal going to be $2 again? It's like, dude, those days are over.
Thanks for the tough love. Yeah,
I remember like 2016 when I was in grad school, my first year, I could feed myself of like $50 going to the grocery store every week. That would hold me over at least for 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
$50 now. It's a
Yeah.
dinner.
yeah. It's rough.
I think
Yeah.
people are also influenced by gas prices because gas prices constantly fluctuate, and that's like one of the biggest things that Americans constantly pay for in large amounts. So the fact that that can go down to $2, why can't everything else go down to $2? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Well, gas prices, they're more volatile than other consumer goods, and you see it literally on the way to work.
Yeah.
So people internalize it more. And that is like the simple voter. Like the simple, ordinary American voter is not watching presidential debates.
Yeah.
They do not know how our government works. All they do is observe what is gas prices, what's the price of eggs. And if that's going good, then I'll vote for the president. And if not, then I won't.
And I heard a statistic that like there's like a meaningful portion of working Americans where gas could be like 20% of their total like take home pay. They live like outside of a big city, and so they have to commute like an hour each day, and so that's all gas consumption, and so now if you got 1/5 of your total take home and you're seeing it rise, I mean that's just that feeling of helplessness, because there's not all of a sudden your whole standard of living is going down and you're having to make trade-offs and everything. So it's a big deal.
And the solution, as we said, is not deflation, but it's trying to figure out a way to get wages to go up.
Right.
Like wages have to catch up with prices. That's how you fix the problem.
Yeah.
So if Democrats are listening,
well, Democrats are listening to one thing, and that is the gerrymander wars. And this is Kieran, I know this is a thing you love to talk about, but what happened in Virginia?
So in 2020, Virginia voted to have an independent commission draw its congressional districts to try to avoid gerrymandering, partisan gerrymandering. I lived in Virginia at the time, and I voted in favor of it. Yeah. So I was one of the 65% of Virginians that said, yes, let's have an independent commission, a combination of some politicians and some citizens from both parties who kind of sit down and hash out relatively nonpartisan lines. And Virginia actually was a pretty good example of it working well, because Virginia has 11 congressional seats. It had 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans. And that more or less is what Virginia is. It is a bluer state, but it's not a New York. It's not a Massachusetts. It's not a California. It's a bluish state that used to be more Republican, but with a lot of people moving to Northern Virginia being right outside D.C. and very liberal. It's kind of changed over the years. That's kind of dragged the whole state more to the left. But, in response to what all these other states have done, primarily Texas, but Ohio did some redistricting as well. And California tried to redistrict to offset part of Texas's gerrymandering. Virginia decided, now that's in the control of Democrats, because Virginia has off-year elections, and you have a Democratic governor now, to hold a ballot initiative on whether or not to redraw the lines, to get rid of that commission, to overrule it temporarily, supposedly, and draw new lines. And so the new districts now should be 10-1, which is really bad. Like that is not good. That's not how it should be. But if I live in Virginia, I probably would have voted in favor of it, because what else are they supposed to do? Right. Like if Democrats unilaterally disarm, they are going to get crushed. They are never going to have the House if they unilaterally disarm. They happen to be in a situation now where they have a Democratic governor and Democratic control of the legislature. They had a Republican governor, Glenn Youngkin, for 4 years. You can't run for re-election in Virginia, only state where you can't do that. So he had to step down. Abigail Spanberger comes in, and she actually was kind of mum on the issue while she was running for office, because she knew it wouldn't be good for election chances if she endorsed it. But she was in favor of it, and pushed it through, and we end up with the vote. And then Virginia is going to be 10-1.
So 10 Dems, 1 Republican?
Yep. Yeah, they stuffed all the Republicans into the southwestern part of the state and drew they're ridiculous gerrymanders. They're really good examples of what's wrong with gerrymandering, where they're taking like this tiny little sliver of Northern Virginia and have a very narrow, like almost like 2-mile path up there, and they extend it really wide in Southern Virginia to include massive areas. You have like a few very concentrated neighborhoods in Northern Virginia being used to outweigh massive rural areas in the southern and western parts of the state. So it is wrong. I don't like it,
Yeah.
but I think what you have to do is pass it at the national level. You do it at the national level, you just kind of force everybody to stop at the same time, and then that stops the arms race.
Yeah, because next is Florida, right? That's kind of the last state that I recall that's kind of on the gerrymander list as far as, either taking executive action or voting.
I think they can't do it until after these midterms. I don't think it'll come into effect until after that. But yes, Florida is going to do the same thing. Florida will. So Florida has, is it like 25 or something like that, 26 seats, something like that in that ballpark. And I don't know what it is right now. It's already gerrymandered for Republicans. They'll be able to take out a few more Democratic seats, I'm sure.
Right.
Make it more Republican. And it's a big problem that politicians are choosing their voters. You are diluting the electorate to in each of these districts to massively favor one side or the other. I've said before, you have these districts where we have, so what is it? 435 districts in the U.S. The number of districts that are competitive is really small, and that is a problem where you end up with politicians who are more worried about a primary than a general election, and they behave in ways that are not good for the country.
Yeah. So then it's just that it kind of putting polarization in cement.
Yeah, it's making polarization worse. So I think the Democrats get control in 2028. What they need to do is pass some kind of anti-gerrymandering bill.
Yeah.
That's really what they need to do.
Well,
I think the concern would be, would the Supreme Court shoot that down?
Well, let's
Because
say
it belongs with states. Would that be the logic?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a state issue, not a federal
is
issue.
that is that part of the Connell 2028 platform?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think that's part of we want to call it Trump proofing or just making the democracy work better. Is you've got to take gerrymandering off the table. It absolutely
I think your
needs to
polling just went up like 3 points.
Yeah,
just unofficially.
absolutely.
I just am sensing that.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. And it's only up from here. And for the record, I was against the war in Iran too, and I'm against gas prices going up. What was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that this is happening not even during a census year too.
Right.
I mean, typically gerrymandering has always been a thing, but this is different. It's happening literally it's 2026, so 4 years before the census, and it means 4 or 5 years before this stuff
Republicans
is supposed to
were
happen.
reading the tea leaves that things were going to look shaky, and at the end of November 2026. So decided to be proactive, and I guess it was a phone call to Greg Abbott kind of kicked off this whole thing, and here we are.
And the other drawback of this, so obviously it's really just sanitized corruption, but also it really ends up affecting voter turnout as well.
Yeah.
So I show my students state by state what turnout looks like in the U.S. And overall turnout in the U.S. is not good.
Yeah.
At least compared to most democracies in Europe and the Australias of the world. I think our turnout is it's actually gone up in recent years, but usually it's hovering in the 60s, and that's for presidential elections. It's going to be much lower for midterm elections. So I think one necessary ingredient of democracy is you got to get people to come out and vote. If people aren't voting in mass, then democracy breaks down. But turnout is especially low in states like Oklahoma, Arkansas are usually the bottom two.
Yeah.
And then the highest turnout states are going to be the Ohios, the Pennsylvanias, the Wisconsins.
Battlegrounds.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, you go to those states and people feel like their vote truly matters.
Yeah.
Whereas if you live in Arkansas, you feel like your vote doesn't matter. And that's kind of because it doesn't. It's really a foregone conclusion. At least if we're talking presidential elections. But this is the case also for congressional districts that get gerrymandered. So it also affects voter turnout. And it has this feeling of there's affects feelings of efficacy. It feels like my vote or my influence is nothing.
I feel good, but it doesn't matter. Question: What about Saturday voting? Would that increase turnout? I don't know if that's really ever been discussed in a major way.
It would probably help a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some people who intend to vote who can't because of obligations from work or whatever else,
Right.
or don't want to wait in a long line once everybody's out of work and goes to vote.
Right.
When Bernie ran for president, he was big on trying to make Election Day a national holiday. Be
Yeah,
another
yes.
option, something like that.
That's in countries. That's the case, right?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, Tuesday is an odd day of the week to have the election. You have to cancel school because you need the space to vote. So you end up canceling school. If you do it on a Saturday, you don't have to cancel school. People presumably be more likely to be able to go vote. So I think that would make sense. And yeah, you do need more of an engaged electorate for democracy to work. And it is hard to be engaged when the general election result's going to be 83% for one party and 17% for the other.
Yeah. Well, just a thought.
They also need to do automatic registration. I think after I saw the thing about them being able to automatically register men into the military, into the draft, thing, I think if they have the ability to do that in the modern age, there should be no reason that they don't have the ability to automatically register voters to be ready to vote for elections.
That unfortunately goes counter to the Republican talking points that that automatic voting at the drivers, the DMVs, that's led to rampant voter fraud. That's they're
also there's like a anti-big government thing too wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
There'd be like special interest groups that would come out and be against that. So like I know the NRA, weirdly enough, opposed like e-verify schemes for getting employers to prove that they were employing documented labor. And the reason the NRA was against it is like, if you can put all this stuff on the books for this issue area, then it's going to lead to more restrictions in terms of gun ownership and whatnot. So that would bring a whole bunch of interest groups out of the woodwork. America's weird in that way. We don't like too much bookkeeping on people's information and whereabouts, sometimes for good reason, but
we all hate government. We all hate big government until we need it, and then all of a sudden
And what's interesting too is if that actually happened, where you had automatic voter registration, if you had election day voting or Saturday voting or making election day national holiday voting. I think overall, if you increase turnout, you could make an argument. I'm not sure if it would hold water, but it might, that it would actually benefit Republicans more than it would benefit Democrats. Because I think a lot of the Republican base right now are I would say, more casual voter in a lot of ways. Voters who are maybe on average a little bit less engaged, a little bit less informed, sort of the Joe Rogan watcher, somebody who's kind of aware of things that are going on a little bit, but it isn't really engaged, isn't like the highly educated, highly informed Democratic voter. And that actually is the opposite of what a lot of people said during the Obama era. Like I remember many people I knew back in the day when Obama was president would say things like, if voter turnout was 100%, the Republican Party would cease to exist, which I think was kind of a dumb comment. I don't agree with that at all. But I heard something along those lines a lot from Democrats in the Obama years. But I remember one of the big studies of the election results in 2024 said that if voter turnout had been higher, Trump would have won by more than he did. So I think there's an argument to be made because the parties now are so polarized, especially on education, that making it easier to vote might actually help Republicans, not hurt Republicans.
All right. Next random topic. Trump cabinet, I guess, head watch. Okay. Right now, how long? Gosh, how long's the administration been? It's not even a year. 9 months.
The administration has been around like a year and 3 months.
Okay. Yeah. That's why I'm not a math major. But okay, so we have Attorney General Pam Bondi by the
Secretary of Labor,
Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, by Secretary of Labor's the latest. I guess she knew how to party. That's I'll give her credit. Speaking of knowing how to party, predictions: will Kash Patel make it to the midterms?
I'm gonna say no, but a light no. I don't really know. I mean, he could hang around for a while. Who knows? But I wouldn't be shocked if. I mean, what's his term? Supposed to be 10 years or something. It's supposed to be a long term for for the head of the FBI. So I don't know, maybe he will be.
Yeah.
But I would say that compared to the first Trump administration, his cabinet's been pretty stable. As you usually get some people, even like in Biden's cabinet, who I think were leaving by the midterm. So it happens. I think overall his cabinet's actually been more stable than I would have thought. I thought there would have been more chaos, but there really hasn't. I mean, there's been chaos in other ways, but there hasn't been a lot of chaos and there's people leaving until pretty recently. So everybody lasted over a year, which I would not have guessed when the cabinet was first formed, last January. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm sure there'll be more people leaving, but that's kind of par for the course in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll guess the opposite. I think he'll stick around. He needs to quote more Quentin Tarantino movies, though.
Yeah.
I think that's the secret sauce. We did this prediction before. I guess we all got it wrong, but but I think you said Hegseth.
Yeah, I
but
thought
Hegseth's quoting Samuel L. Jackson.
He's rising. Yeah,
he's a wordsmith.
And I maybe because of the wars that kind of raised his profile, and so he's as long as he goes out and blows things up, everything's cool. But yeah, I thought, and I like to go back. I really thought he'd lose the military, and he might very well have lost the military. They may not respect him, but they still got to follow orders. So that yeah.
And what's going on with the Department of Education? Is that still a thing, or is that?
Yeah, it's like I guess Linda McMahon is just quietly just dismantling the whole thing, just kind of taking it brick by brick, and just not going to leave anything standing, and just she's kind of smart, just does it under the radar, doesn't bring any attention to herself, and so I'm sure that she's got full approval. And the thing with like Trump 1.0 versus 2.0, I think that there was a lot of departures at 1.0, and it's mainly because these were people that were talking back and disagreeing with Trump, and so it was kind of like they committed the ultimate sin. Here, in 2.0, he made it very clear that only loyalists were going to be part of that administration, and so as long as you every cabinet meeting you just lavish praise on them, and you just speak in glowing terms every time about he's the greatest president ever. That kind of buys you a pretty long leeway as far as stuff that you can do. That seems to be the day. But despite that, I think bringing on loyalists was one thing, but were they really the right people for the job? And I think that's been the case with Noam and Bondi in particular, that they were just not a good match for what that job needed. Man, I left you guys speechless. Yeah, it's like, whoa. Yeah. Profound. Profound.
Yeah. No, we're living through House of Cards. I don't know if you've seen House of Cards, but that's literally a lot of how that administration worked of Kevin Spacey is just you got to be a yes man. So
and
great guy.
Apparently.
Yeah, there's a reason he's not in movies anymore.
Yeah,
at least high-profile movies anymore. He's in a few random ones, I think. But
I don't know. He really got canceled.
He was in something. The only thing I knew about it was this really obscure history movie, and I'm forgetting what the topic was. But it was like nowhere near a feature film, like a very obscure history movie you would never see unless you were, very narrowly focused on early American history. But he was one of the main actors in that. I have to look up what it is, but it was.
But you saw that and not Pulp Fiction. I'm
Yeah, that's about right.
What was that dog sledding movie he was in about the Iditarod? Right, it's about the Iditarod. He's in a movie about the Iditarod race. I remember watching that.
Well, the one that let me see, Usual Suspects.
Mm-hmm.
He was in, and that was great.
He was a good actor. I mean, he's just a terrible guy.
Usual Suspects was great. He American Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that. It won an Oscar, and it was like it's always like one at the top, like the top 3 most undeserving Oscar winners.
It's
know?
Oscar bait. It's,
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. I've seen that movie and I don't get
Yeah.
why it's so good.
I don't, and they talk, it's like, sometimes they push this on. It's like The Revenant. You remember that
Yeah.
with Leo?
Wait,
I saw
are you
that.
talking about the Leo?
What?
Yeah.
You didn't like that
actually a
either.
Good film.
No.
Yeah, neither did I. Okay.
I was
What-
bored to tears.
What about the movie about Queen?
Yeah.
What was it called
Correct.
even?
Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yes.
Didn't The Revenant win Best
Yeah.
Picture or Best Actor or something?
No,
like
it
that?
was Leo's first time winning Best Actor.
I thought
Best
they won
actor,
Best
okay.
Picture
they
too.
probably did. It was 2015.
1780 is the movie that Spacey's in. It's set in the Revolutionary War. That's why I know about it. But came out last year.
There
Oh
is
my
a lot of
So
gaslighting.
he
though.
is
That's-
so he's uncanceled.
Well, I don't know.
Well, didn't he get acquitted on that charge with the? We're not going to go into it, but
Well, I think it was probably well
believe
for the
so.
statute of limitations, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was something, but he's like, "Oh, I'm not, or I'm free or whatever." And then he made like this like video where he went like full like House of Cards mode and like talked about like, "Did I do it?" Like and
That's
like
the thing.
played
He's
his character.
so good at acting that
Yeah.
can you really trust him when he's like?
Yeah.
I can't tell if he's being sincere. If
Yeah.
he's acting.
It's kind of like a full OJ, if I had done this.
Speaking of OJ, speaking of really terrible movies, I can end on this. The Michael Jackson biopic
Yeah.
is apparently just so terrible. And the best comment I saw from a reviewer was, "This is like if they made an O.J. Simpson biopic and ended when he won the Heisman Trophy."
Okay. It's brutal.
It is so like. But then again, like every single one of his family members that's still alive is worked on
Yeah.
the film. So it's like, of course, they're not going to like go into anything.
Oh yeah,
sensitive.
and there was something that in one of the non-disclosure agreements with one of the young boys involved that his family had some thing that if they ever tried to monetize the whole story that they could like object to it and ask for revisions and everything, and so I guess the movie had got like 75% done, and then the family's attorneys kind of stepped in. They had to do this big revision, and I think that's where they kind of cleaned this whole story up, and yeah, that's tough because MJ is a Broadway musical, been running for several years. I don't know with you guys that listening to and enjoying his music is always kind of tough because I do. I mean, I just like all things that he did, but you always have it in the back of your head that's like, oh man, there was some wrong stuff that went on.
It's kind of like the same thing with R. Kelly. Although I don't like a lot of his music, but he does have like 3 or 4
Yeah.
songs that I think are really good. And it's like, ugh,
Yeah,
like, yeah, weird taste in your mouth, but you still listen to it.
I won't ask you, Kieran, about Michael Jackson because I think you're going to just say,
I don't know much. I mean, the basics, but not that much.
Brendan,
Michael who?
anything?
No, I've played the 5th here. I'm running for office in a couple of
That's right.
years,
You got to be.
so
You got to
I-
make friends with everybody.
Sometimes you got to pick your battles,
Okay,
I'm going
so-
to plead the 5th.
Great way to close. Tell us some of the upcoming campaign events for Connell 2028. Yeah.
Oh, well, nothing's planned yet, but I'm open to suggestions if any
Suggestions?
students want to come out.
All
and,
right.
When you become the president, you need to bring back reading to children. Like
reading to children.
Donald
Okay.
Trump, I don't think he's gone to, how like Obama and Bush and them,
Yeah.
used to go and like go to the kindergarten or whatever and read the Hungry Hungry Caterpillar or whatever,
Oh,
Okay.
that was, yeah.
well,
that was-
we'll think about campaign stops now.
Mhm.
Do you plan to go and tour the Manosphere and hit all the bro prop podcasts and everything?
Yeah, I'd love to go on Theo Vaughn. I'd love to go on Joe Rogan's podcast. I'd like to go on Bill Burr's podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that is going to be generally the strategy. I feel like rather than physically go to places, I rather just physically go to where the podcast studios are. And
I think Bill Burr and you would be a match made in heaven.
it would just be roasting back and forth, just a lot of
I love that
distasteful
guy.
language. Yeah, I'm also
Speaking
a
of,
Burr fan.
did he get canceled, Bill Burr, or did he kind of survive?
No, he's. occasionally he'll release a special and people will get angry about something
Yeah,
he
he
said.
says something. Yeah.
Isn't he
I-
anti-Trump?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But no,
he's-
he just doesn't care.
He,
so,
he's
yeah.
you know, and if you're an a-hole, he basically says it, no matter
Mhm.
what. And he's brilliant.
Mhm.
Well, that'll be a real good way to end all this. So, thank you for listening and watching As the World Turns or Burns. We'll be back to you in next week with another show. Like us if you can. Subscribe if you can, and
Leave a donation, maybe.
what?
Leave a donation, perhaps.
Leave a
Can they
donation.
donate on the videos?
Yes, donate. And we also have to kind of acknowledge that we're like in the final countdown. Anybody want to do the I can't even sing it, but the final countdown is coming in where Brendan is going to be. We only probably have one more show with you, and then
It'll be the final episode, yeah.
and
yeah.
then who knows what
12-hour live stream.
12-hour live will answer questions.
Yeah.
That's but, and
rapid
that's,
fire.
But, when somebody throws their hat in the ring and wants to be president, that's one of the things that we have to accept, that he's on to bigger and better things.
But I will say, I will absolutely come back, let's say like one time a year, one time a semester, if you
There you
allow
are.
me to be a guest
Oh,
on the
yeah.
podcast.
All
and
right.
We can,
We can accommodate. All right, so I'll say goodbye
See you later.
Nachvamdis.
and
Goodbye. Also, one final note.
yes.
Because of analytics, I found out that 97% of people who listen are not subscribed. So if you're one of those 97%, you should subscribe, because we know who you are.
And that has to be true, because that's a Pavlov Award winner
Yep.
that's just said that. All right. Thank you all. Take care.
This podcast is sponsored in part by Lyon College and KILT Studios. Thank you to Jonah Winter for the intro and outro music.